Welcome, sleepless spirit. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to guide you gently into the shadows of slumber, where dreams take over and worries fade away. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more bedtime tales, whispered just for you. Let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it as you listen tonight? And if there's a story you've been longing to hear, something spooky, something comforting, tell me. I'm always listening. Now, tuck yourself in. Let the darkness wrap around you like a warm blanket. It's time to let go and drift into the story. Would come to this when I first met Jared. He seemed perfect, attentive, gentle, patient. We met as a winter art walk in downtown Minneapolis, just outside an old brewery turned gallery space. Was sipping mulled wine, pretending to care about minimalist sculpture, when he walked up beside me and said, "Looks like Simeon sneezed metal into a corner." I laughed. That kind of stupid humor hit me just right. He was soft-spoken, but confident, well-groomed, but not obsessed with himself. A carpenter by trade, said he liked building things from scratch. His hands were rough in that way that made you trust him immediately. Was 27, working as a behavioral therapist for kids with autism. I didn't have time for games, and Jared didn't seem like the kind of guy who played them. We moved in together 6 months later, to fast by anyone's standards, but it felt right. He was so good with my daughter Daisy, who had just turned 5. She called him Jer Bear. By the end of that summer, he taught her how to draw fish and foxes with just 5 strokes of a pencil, and she loved sitting on his shoulders while we walked around the lake back then. I believed in fairy tales. What I didn't see, what I refused to see, were the cracks under the surface, the subtle way he'd correct my version of a story in front of friends, how he'd remind me how lucky I was to have someone who didn't mind baggage. The first time he snapped at Daisy, she cried for a whole hour. He told me later that kids needed to be toughened up. Still I stayed. I always stayed. February 11th, 2025. Entry from my hidden notebook, written in the crouch crawl space beneath the stairs. The mid portions are getting smaller. Daisy is noticing. She asked me today if we can go out for pancakes. I told her it's still not safe. She said that there's no more boom booms. I wish that were true. It's been 4 weeks since the broadcast, 4 weeks since the world slammed shut, 4 weeks since Jared locked deadbolts on the cellar door and said, "We'll wait this out." 4 weeks since I last heard a voice on the other end of a phone. The morning of January 14th was quiet, blue-skied. I remember Jared calling me from the living room asking if I wanted scrambled or fried. Daisy was in her pajamas, watching cartoons. I was brushing my teeth when the emergency alert flashed across the bathroom mirror, reflected from my phone screen. An emergency alert: biochemical exposure confirmed in Upper Midwest sector. Shelter in place. Immediately lock windows secure. All food and water. Do not go outside. I stood frozen, toothbrush halfway to my mouth, a foamy mess dripping down my chin. First instinct was to call my sister, but the line was already dead. Didn't panic. He was weirdly calm. He'd been expecting it. He told me it's finally happening. I thought he meant a war, but later he said something else that still chills me. We'll be safer without them. Our house wasn't huge, but Jed had outfitted the basement with emergency supplies, rows of canned goods, dried pasta, even MRS. I used to joke that he was one bad news cycle away from digging a bunker. He used to just smile. We moved into the cellar like it was a second honeymoon. Sleeping bags, board games, Daisy's drawings taped to the walls. For the first week, it was almost fun. We ran out of milk, then eggs, then fruit. Daisy kept asking for apples. Jared snapped at me for wasting canned peaches on her. We can't cuddle her, he whispered that night, his lips close to my ear. Was calm, but firm. She needs to adjust to what? By day 9, I stopped asking. The smell of the cellar started to change. The air was damp, sticky. Jared began locking the cellar door from the outside. Said it was safer that way. I didn't fight it, not yet. He stopped coming down 4 hours at a time. When he did, his eyes were glassy, his breath stale. He claimed he was patrolling the neighborhood. That's when I realized he had a knife tucked in his belt. The night Jed didn't come back, it was January 31st. He left at dusk and didn't return until sunrise. His hoodie was soaked. Something metallic clung to the air. Daisy was asleep in my lap. I asked him what happened. He dropped a duffel bag at me feet. Inside were clothes, a wallet, keys, all soaked in blood. He said he found them abandoned I didn't ask more, I wanted to believe him. But something had shifted. He kissed Daisy on the forehead. That night, like she was porcelain, like she might break. The meat pie had started that day. He said they were special. New recipe. Daisy was thrilled. I wanted to throw up the second. I smelled them baking upstairs. But I held it together. When I bit into it, the texture was wrong. The filling was stringy dark. There was a chunk of something that tasted like gristle. Jared watched me the whole time, his smile tight. Daisy said, "Mommy, it tastes funny." I told her it's a new recipe. I know what he did. I found a tooth in the trash. A mare too big to be Daisy's too old. And I found the wallet. The ID card said Michael Tanzia, delivery driver. I think he's been going out and collecting them. I think he likes it. Jared came down holding a plate of hot food, meat pies. He said with a grin. I told him I wasn't hungry. He didn't ask twice. He handed the plate to Daisy. She ate it like it was normal. I stared at her, my little girl with pigtails and purple unicorn socks, eating what I knew wasn't food. That night, I cried in silence while holding her. Jared whispered, "We're running low." I asked on what? He said, "Oh, stock protein, you know, meat." I felt cold even under 3 blankets. Then he looked at me and said something I still hear in dreams. "You're a small woman, babe. That she's growing fast, real fast." I didn't sleep that night. He didn't lock the cellar door properly. I noticed it during Daisy's nap. I waited until midnight, crept up the stairs with nothing but a screwdriver in quiet desperation in the kitchen. The oven was on, something was already cooking. I opened the fridge. Inside was a leg, not animal, human skinned, but unmistakable. Next to it, a Ziploc bag of toes. I grabbed Daisy, threw a coat over her pajamas, and we ran barefoot, snow up to our ankles. My fingers numb. I didn't know where we were going. The door was ajar. Inside was cold, quiet, no signs of life. But we stayed anyway. I barricaded the door with a table. We curled up in their coat closet, and I held her tight. She kept whispering, "Where's Jar Bear?" And I said, "He's gone, he's not coming back." The emergency alert finally changed. Rescue teams are active, remain in place and visible. Avoid hostile survivors. It's now June 25th. Daisy and I were rescued on February 23rd. Jared never resurfaced. His house was deemed a red zone and salvageable. The basement had blood traces from 4 individuals, including a teenage girl and an older man. No full remains were recovered. Daisy's safe. Now she's going to therapy. So am I. Some days are better, some are worse. She still asks about the meat pies. I tell her that was just a bad dream. But I know the truth, and I don't eat meat anymore. I always thought that when things fell apart with my ex, it would be the hardest thing I'd ever go through. 5 years with the father of my son, trying to make it work through money problems, fights, and too many sleepless nights. But when I finally ended it for good, I felt something close to relief, like I could finally breathe again. 3 months into being a single mom, wasn't looking for anyone. My focus was on my son Milo. He was 3 and full of energy, always talking, always moving, always asking me to play. When I hadn't eaten all day, I didn't have time for romance, and I didn't trust myself to pick the right kind of man anymore. But somehow I still ended up with him. His name was Derek, and he was introduced to me by my neighbor Marcus. "He's a good guy," Marcus had said. "Bit of a loner, keeps to himself." Mostly said he noticed you in the parking lot and was too shy to say anything. I almost laughed. Had noticed me. I didn't wear makeup anymore. I had spit up on half my shirts and dark circles under my eyes from staying up with Milo when he had his nightmares. But I was flattered, and honestly Marcus wouldn't steer me wrong. He'd help me jump my car more than once and watched Milo when I was late coming home from work. So when he offered to set us up on a casual coffee date at the local diner, I agreed. That's how it started. Derek was charming. He listened more than he spoke, and when he did talk, he was gentle and thoughtful. He never interrupted. He was the first man who didn't talk over me, made me feel like I mattered, like was more than just someone's exhausted mom. The first 6 months felt like something out of a movie. He bought Milo a little red fire truck on their first meeting. He cooked dinner when I got stuck working late. When Milo got sick, he stayed up all night rubbing his back while I tried to sleep. But things started changing slowly. At first he'd drink a beer with dinner, then 2. Then I noticed the small bottles of whiskey in his coat pocket. He said he was just to take the edge off the edge of what I didn't know. But I didn't ask either. I should have. It was a Friday night when the first real Shift happened. We were at a friend's birthday party. Just a backyard get-together with a grill and some music. Milo was with my mum for the weekend, so I let myself relax a little. Derek had a few drinks, then a few more, when our friend Sam jokingly offered me a bite of his burger. Derek yanked the plate from my hands and threw it into the bushes. "You hungry?" he hissed. "Go eat off the ground." Like a dog. A yawn froze. I tried to laugh it off, said he was drunk, but the mood was ruined. We left early in the car. He was silent at home. He slammed the door and locked himself in the bathroom. When he came out he cried and said he was sorry, that he was afraid of losing me, that he'd quit drinking. I forgave him, but it didn't stop. The outbursts became more frequent, slamming cabinets, punching the wall. When he got frustrated, then came the insults. At first small jabs: "You look tired, maybe put on some real clothes today." Then they grew cruel: "No wonder your ex left you. You're lucky anyone wants you." I should have left then, but I stayed because I remembered the man who rubbed my son's back all night, the one who brought me daisies just because, and I told myself he's still in there. The first time he hit me, it was a shove. We were arguing about something stupid. He accused me of flirting with or no upstairs neighbor. I rolled my eyes and told him he was being paranoid. He pushed me hard enough that I stumbled into the hallway. Well, there was silence. "Then you made me do that." And again he cried, "I'm sorry. I saw the way you looked at him. I panicked." "I love you too, Mitch. That's my problem. Love doesn't hurt like this." I see that now. Over the next 3 months the line between love and control disappeared completely. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere unless he approved it. He'd check my phone. He'd scream. He took too long at the grocery store. He'd hold me down during arguments, not hitting just enough to remind me he was stronger, that I couldn't leave if I tried, and always it ended with apologies. "I didn't mean it. You just make me so crazy sometimes. I don't know what I'd do if you left." I stopped seeing my friends. They stopped calling. They knew, but I was too ashamed to admit it. The bruises I could cover, the broken spirit, not so easy. The night everything changed. Milo had a fever. I told Derek was going to sleep in Milo's room just to keep an eye on him. He didn't argue. He'd been drinking since lunch and passed out by 10 p.m. I thought I was safe at 2:30 a.m. The door creaked open. I didn't move. I held my son tight and pretended to be asleep. I heard him breathing. Then I felt his hand in my hair. He yanked me out of bed so hard I nearly dropped. "Milo, I know what you're doing," he growled in my ear. "You're avoiding me." He dragged me into the living room. My knees hit the tile floor. My head was spinning. "You think you can hide in there?" he spat. "You're lucky I even keep you around. I should have let you rot when I found you." Then he paused. "You underscore someone else. Are you think I'm stupid?" Before I could answer, he hit me, not with his fist, with his foot. I fell forward, tried to crawl toward Milo's room. He walked around me, knelt down. "You move again, and I swear to God, I'll make you disappear." Then he sat on the couch and stared at me like he was waiting for me to do something stupid for 30 minutes. I laid there sobbing, quietly praying he'd fall asleep. He did. I waited 10 more minutes. Then I stood, legs shaking, and picked up Milo, who had wandered out of his room. He was sleepy, confused. "Where are we going, Mommy?" "Just getting water, baby," I whispered as I crept past the couch. Direction shot out and grabbed my ankle. "Where are you going?" he slurred. "I am just getting Milo some juice." "Juice? Hurry the hell up." I nodded, walked toward the kitchen, and ran. I burst out the front door barefoot, wearing just an oversized shirt, no pants, no phone, no money. Milo in my arms. We ran 3 blocks to the police station. It was after hours, so I had to go into a tiny vestibule and press a button to speak through an intercom. Slid to the floor, clutching my son, heart pounding. A voice crackled, "Can help you?" I couldn't speak. I sobbed into the mic. 2 officers came out. A woman took Milo. A man wrapped me in a blanket. Then I heard screaming. "Where is she?" Derek's voice echoed down the hallway. The officers locked the door and told me to stay put. 30 minutes later, they brought a sergeant into the room. What he was going to tell me to go home, that they'd keep Derek for a night, that I could collect my things tomorrow. Instead, he handed me a folder. We found this in his car. Inside was a notebook, Derek's handwriting, a list of dates, most crossed out, and beneath them a paragraph that detailed how he'd cut me up and bury the parts separately near the river, so I'd never be found. I couldn't breathe, my vision blurred. "What does this mean?" I whispered. The officer looked me dead in the eyes. "It means you're lucky, Derek was charged with attempted murder, kidnapping and domestic assault. I left the state before the trial started, gave my testimony via deposition. I took Milo and moved to a small town in New Mexico where no one knew us. I thought that was the end, but a week before I left, a letter arrived, no return address, one sentence, written in red ink: "It's not over, you'll always be mine." And that's why I keep a lock on every door, a bat beside my bed, and a light on in every room, because monsters don't just live under your bed. Sometimes they live in your home, and sometimes they call it love. I never imagined one off-handed sentence would almost cost me my life 3 years ago. Was living in a quiet neighborhood in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, a small town, peaceful, affordable, where everybody knew just enough about everyone else to stay polite, but not involved. I had just left a 5-year relationship with the father of my daughter. We'd been done for a while, but I officially ended things after realizing I was more lonely in that relationship than when I was physically alone. I was just starting to enjoy being single again, rediscovering who I was when I wasn't someone's partner or someone's mom. That's when Ethan came into my life. He was a friend of my neighbor's cousin, hearing them by accident at a birthday barbecue next door. My daughter was with her dad for the weekend, and I had a rare moment of freedom, so I went next door for a plate of ribs and ended up making small talk with this guy, leaning against the fence with a beer in his hand. "Damn," he said, looking at me like I was the last woman on earth. "You're literally my dream girl." I rolled my eyes and smiled, assuming he was just another guy who'd had one too many Bud Lights. But he didn't laugh. He said it again, slower: "No, I mean it. You're exactly the kind of woman I've always wanted. I'd do anything for you," I said playfully. "Prove it," he grinned, then walked into the house. I figured that was the end of that, until he came back out 10 seconds later holding a kitchen knife. Before I could react, he pointed it at his own chest. "You'll show you my heart right now, I swear." "What the hell?" I rushed over, grabbed his wrist and yanked the knife away. "Are you insane?" He just looked at me with the kind of smile people wear when they're too sincere. "You said to prove it." I laughed nervously and tried to play it off. I thought maybe he was just dramatic, intense, yeah, but also charming in a weird way. But that night, we started talking more, then texting, then dating, and in the beginning, it was incredible. He listened, he cleaned, cooked, without being asked. He bought my daughter little gifts, even asked if it was okay to meet her, which I said no to, thank God. He took me out on dates every Friday and left sweet notes in my mailbox. I'll admit part of me was flattered. After years of being ignored or disrespected, Ethan made me feel like I mattered again. But something about him always felt off, like if I paused too long between texts, he'd send 5 more. If I didn't answer a call, he'd leave voicemails asking if I was okay, or worse, apologizing as if he'd done something wrong even when he hadn't. I should have trusted my gut. Then one evening, we were sitting in my car in the Target parking lot eating drive-through Chinese out of the containers. He asked, "Is there anything you want to do this week?" I was tired from work, I sighed and said jokingly, "Yeah, I want to kick my boss's ass." He gave me the weekend shift again. Ethan laughed. "That's a good idea." I rolled my eyes. "I'm kidding." He just smiled. We kissed, and I dropped him off at his apartment. The next morning I got a text from him: "Hope you're feeling refreshed. Your boss won't be walking for a while." I froze. I reread it 3 times. I thought he was joking until my phone rang. It was my manager's wife. She told me he was in the hospital. Some stranger had jumped him in the parking lot before work. The guy shattered his hip with a metal pipe and then vanished. I felt my stomach drop. I called Ethan immediately. "Please tell me you didn't." He cut me off, sounding almost proud. "Didn't you say you wanted him out of the picture? Now he's got 6 months of medical leave. You're welcome." I started yelling, screaming. He went quiet. Then in a low voice he said, "I'm sorry, I just thought I was doing what you wanted." That was the beginning of the unraveling. I started choosing my words carefully around him. Every sentence I spoke was measured, cautious. One night, we were walking through the mall when I stopped outside a display window, a luxury bag, cream leather with gold clasps. It was gorgeous. Without thinking, I muttered, "If I had that bag, I'd be happy, even if I had to eat underscore every day." I regretted it the second it left my mouth. I felt eyes on me and turned. Ethan was staring. I laughed awkwardly. "It was just a figure of speech, babe, relax." He didn't laugh. He just said, "I'll be right back." Then he turned and walked away fast. I called after him, but he didn't stop. He didn't answer texts or calls for the next 2 days. When he finally showed up, was in front of my apartment. He walked up like he was modeling for a fashion show, holding the bag, the happiest girl in the world. He said beaming, "Where did you get that?" I asked, stepping back. He shrugged, robbed like 12 people. My fists hurt. I couldn't even speak. He leaned in and whispered, "Now, what do you want next?" That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the bag and started shaking. The man was dating had physically attacked someone for me, then robbed strangers to impress me, and he thought it was love. I told him I wanted to end things. At first he didn't understand, then his face twisted in a way I'll never forget. "That's a joke, right?" I shook my head. "Number, it's not." He smiled, "But it was forced. That's funny." I stepped back. "He went to end this for real." As I twitched, "If that's what you want, we'll break up, but we can still be friends, right?" "Number, Ethan, I don't want to see you again." He looked like I'd slapped him. "That's impossible for me. If it's too hard, just pretend I don't exist. Close your eyes and imagine I've left this world." Then he ran out sobbing. I thought that was the end. 2 weeks later, at 2:30 a.m., Semyonek knocked on my door loud. I peeked through the curtain. It was Ethan, and he wasn't alone. He was standing there with a massive pit bull on a leash. He looked up at my window and smiled. "I can't forget you," he shouted. "So I'm going to fix that." I screamed and colored the police. He tried to run, but he didn't make it far. The officers told me later that he'd confessed, said he wanted the dog to disfigure me, to ruin my face, so he could forget me. "If I can't picture her," he told them, "I won't miss her." They charged him with attempted assault, with a deadly animal harassment and stalking. He was sentenced. He went to prison. I moved across the state. I got a new job, new apartment. I went to therapy. My daughter never knew a thing about him for 2 years. Nothing happened. Then one night my phone lit up. Unknown number, text message. "Haven't forgotten you yet. Soon I'll destroy completely." I didn't reply. I turned off my phone. I drove to the police station that night and showed them the message. They said they'd investigate. They always say. They've since changed my number again, added cameras around my home because of a restraining order refiled. But even now, every time someone knocks on my door, every time I hear a dog barking in the middle of the night, every time my phone buzzes, and I don't recognize the number, that sentence echoes in my head. "What do you want now?" Because I know he'd do anything, and I mean anything, to give it to me. Ever thought I'd be one of those girls? The kind who gets swept up in a perfect romance, only to realize too late that something was deeply dangerously wrong. To think I was smarter than that, grounded, the type of girl who could smell a lie from a mile away. But when it came to Ethan Carter, I didn't just fall, I plunged hard. It started in the spring semester of my sophomore year. I'd just transferred to Briar Glen High, a quiet school tucked in the edge of a small Pennsylvania town where everyone knew everyone else, or thought they did. I was the new girl with an average face, above average grades, and a knack for disappearing into crowds. I didn't want to stand out, not after the move. Note: after what happened at my last school, my only goal was to keep my head down and finish the year without incident. Then Ethan happened. He was the golden boy of Briar Glen, tall, disarming, polite to teachers, charming to girls, athletic. Without trying, he was the kind of guy mums adored and dads trusted, the kind of guy who made other boys insecure without saying a word. His hazel eyes had this gentle gleam. He was always just seconds away from laughter. I don't know how or why he noticed me. Maybe it was because I didn't throw myself at him, the others, or maybe he really did like me. It's hard to tell now, looking back. All I know is one day he was holding the door open for me at the chemistry class, and the next we were walking the halls together, fingers entwined, like something out of a Netflix teen drama. My name is Lena Moore, by the way, and back then I was the luckiest girl at Briar Glen, or so I thought. For the first 2 months being with Ethan felt like living in someone else's skin. Had slipped into a life that wasn't meant for me. We'd walk home from school together, share fries at Louis Diner, and lie in his backyard watching the stars blink alive. He'd call me Bright Eyes. When I was overthinking things, I'd trace the freckle under his left eye with my thumb. It was stupid, mushy, perfect. Even my mom noticed. He seems to good tobe true, she once said, while folding laundry, her brows furrowed with that look only moms give when they sense a storm on the horizon. But I ignored her. I ignored everyone, because when you're inside something that feels like love, it's easy to mistake the storm clouds for fireworks. Then things change subtly at first, like when you wake up and sense something is off, but you can't place it. He stopped walking me home, said he had meetings or detention or just stuff. His text slowed down, his laughter seemed more forced. He changed his phone's lock screen from a selfie of us to just a blank forest. I found out from someone else that he'd quit student council. When I asked why, he just shrugged and said he was over it. I tried not to panic. Maybe he's stressed. I told my best friend Jenna college talk is starting, senior stuff is mom's strict. Maybe, or maybe he's just losing interest. Jenna said bluntly, chewing her gum with that cruel kind of honesty only close friends can get away with. Still, I held on, because that's what you do when you're already too deep. The last real conversation we had before it all unraveled was short. Hey Ethan, can we talk? He glanced at his watch, then nodded. I have like 10 minutes. What's up? Are we okay? Yeah, of course, why wouldn't we be? He smiled, that same crooked grin, but his eyes didn't match. I didn't believe him. Was I told myself I did? It was a Thursday when everything shifted, I remember, because we had a half day and I stayed behind for student council setup. I wasn't even in council anymore, just helping decorate for the spring dance out of habit, or maybe hope that Ethan would show up and things would magically return to normal. All little of us stayed late, me and Collie James, a soft-spoken junior with green-streaked hair and paint-stained hoodies. I didn't know her well, but she was the kind of girl who always carried headphones in a sketchbook. We ended up talking as we strung up fairy lights. I didn't mean to spill everything, but I did, about the weird behavior, the lies, the growing ache in my chest. Callie listened quietly, nodding now and then she said something that changed everything. He's hiding something, but it's not another girl. I paused. What do you mean? You mean? She looked up at me slowly. Have you ever wondered why no one knows where Ethan lives? What are you talking about? He has a house. Have you been there? I blinked. Number. But I've dropped him off a few blocks away. He said his parents are strict about guests. Callie didn't answer. She just gave me this look, this knowing look. Be careful, Lena. There's a reason he picked you. I left around 8:30. The sky had turned the color of bruises and bruised promises. The streets were nearly empty as I rounded the corner near the school gates. I saw him, Ethan, leaning against the lamppost like he had all the time in the world. Hey, he said softly, was waiting for you. To walk past him, he stepped in front of me. Let me walk you home. Thuak was silent, tense. Every footstep between us was a wedge halfway through. He turned to me. Lena, what's wrong? I snapped. Are you cheating on me? He froze. What don't I? Just tell me, please. I need to know. He stared at me with this unreadable expression for a second. I thought I saw panic. Then I heard it rustling in the trees. We both turned. Probably a raccoon, I said, trying to laugh. But Ethan didn't laugh. He grabbed my hand. We need to run. And we did. We ran. We ducked into a playground near Maple Street. It was deserted. Moonlight shimmered off the rusted slide. I was panting, confused. What the hell is going on? I gasped. He turned to me. His face was pale. Someone's following us. Someone who's been following me for months. I stared. What are you talking about? They threatened you in letters, said if I didn't break up with you, they'd kill you. My blood turned to slush. Who would do that? Ethan looked down. I think they're from student council. Callie. He didn't answer before I could ask again. We heard it, metal creaking. Something or someone was crawling up the slide. We didn't wait. We ran again. We made it halfway down Wood Avenue before we ducked behind a tree. Whoever it was had followed. Then I saw them, a figure sprinting past. I stuck my foot out. They fell. Ethan pinned them. I yanked off their hoodie. It was Callie. Her lip was split, eyes wide. Lena, she gasped. You need to run. He's not who you think. He's not cheating. He's a murderer. I froze. Ethan stood face calm. He's lying, he said smoothly. She's obsessed with me. She's been following us for weeks. I looked into Callie's eyes. They pleaded, they screamed. But I was tired, confused, scared. I walked away the next day. Callie wasn't at school. The office said she transferred. No one knew where. Ethan and I stayed together. He was sweeter, calmer. He even invited me over his house. Was strange to cling to quiet. He said his parents were on a trip in the basement. He showed me a box. These are the hearts, he said. She sent them. I looked inside. They weren't animal hearts. I knew that immediately. They were human, and the worst part, one had a tiny tattoo on the corner, a familiar clover, the same one Callie had on her wrist. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next morning, Ethan kissed my forehead. You believe me, right? I smiled, of course, a bit. Was already planning. because the only thing scarier than knowing he was a murderer was knowing I was next. I never believed I'd end up in one of those stories, you know, the ones where the girl says she ignored the red flags, where people in the comments ask, why didn't she just leave sooner? I used to ask the same questions. I used to think I was smarter than that. But when you're inside it, it's different. Things don't feel as dangerous until they're already too far gone. This all started back in 2016, when I was 22. I'm working part-time at a boutique wiki shop in Maple Heights, a small town just outside of Albany, New York. My schedule was routine work, gym, home, nothing exciting. I had just gotten out of a 3-year relationship, and one of my co-workers convinced me to try dating apps just for fun. She said, you don't have to marry anyone. That's how I met Eli Mercer. His profile wasn't flashy, ruleless selfies, no weird bios, just a normal looking guy, dark hair, clean smile, a short blur about liking animals and cooking. We chatted for 2 days before he asked to meet in person. I hesitated at first. I usually liked more time to text before meeting, but he was polite, persistent, and seemed harmless. We met at a small Italian restaurant just off downtown, public, neutral, safe. He was charming, not in an over-the-top way, but steady, calm voice, intense eye contact, asked me questions about my life that made me feel like I mattered. Looking back, I think that's what pulled me in. He made me feel important. Seen as 2 weeks of casual meetups, we were officially dating. The first few weeks were honestly nice. Eli was attentive. He'd walk me to my car and for work, bring me coffee during my shifts. He wasn't overly affectionate in public, but in private, he was sweet. We'd cook dinner together at his place, watch horror movies, talk about our dreams. I thought maybe this could be something serious, but then things began to twist slowly. It started with texts. Who were you talking to at the gym today? Why didn't you answer me for 15 minutes? You still talk to your ex? I brushed it off at first. Some guys were just insecure. I figured if I reassured him, he'd chill out. But he didn't. Every day, the questions got more specific, more accusatory. One day after work, I mentioned that a guy named Marcus, someone I'd worked with for a year, helped me move some heavy boxes in the storage room. Eli went still. Why didn't you ask one of the girls to help? Because Marcus was right there. It wasn't a big deal. He leaned against the counter, arms folded. So you just let any guy put his hands all over your stuff? I laughed, thinking he was joking, but his face didn't change. No, Eli, he helped lift a box, not take me on a date. He didn't say anything for a while, just stared. Eventually, he left saying he needed air. That night was the first time I slept with my phone on silent. I stayed with Eli for 2 months. I know that sounds long to some people reading this, but if you've ever been in something manipulative, you'll understand it doesn't happen all at once. He didn't scream at me or hit me. He wore me down piece by piece. At first I just thought he was jealous. Then I realized he was keeping score. If I didn't respond to his text fast enough, he'd ignore me the next day. If I didn't answer a call, I'd get a passive-aggressive message an hour later. Hope you're okay. Unless you're out with someone better. By the end of week 8, I felt exhausted. I missed being able to breathe, to have a life. I decided to end it. We met in a park near his apartment. I kept it public. He didn't take it well, hadn't scream or cry. He just stared at me with the kind of quiet that makes your skin cold. Then he nodded. You'll regret this, he said. I'm the only one who really sees you. I didn't reply. I just walked to my car and left. I expected it to end there. It didn't at first. It was harmless, a text a week after the breakup from just thinking about you, hope you're good. I didn't reply. Then another. You really think some loser like Marcus is better than me? Blocked. He started using other numbers, burner apps, emails. You're making a mistake. You're going to end up alone. You owe me closure. The messages were relentless. I changed my number, told my manager. She let me work different shifts to avoid being predictable. That Eli, he started showing up once at the grocery store, ears in the baking aisle, comparing cake mixes. When I heard Maya, a froze. He smiled like it was normal. Didn't expect to see you here. Heart kicked into my ribs. I have nothing to say to you. Don't have to say anything. I just wanted to see you. I backed away. Don't follow me. I'm not following you. I just shop here. I left the cart behind and walked straight to the parking lot. That's when I heard him call after me. Maya, don't walk away from me. Don't do this. People turned to look. I got in my car, unlocked the doors. He stood there watching me drive away. 2 days later, he came to my job. Was midway through painting a client's nails when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up and my whole body locked. Eli, he walked in like a customer, sat down in the waiting area. Just watched. I whispered to my co-worker. Jasmine, call the police. She glanced at him, then back at me, and nodded. Eli stood up. Can we talk just a few minutes outside? No please. I shook my head. You're not supposed to be here. Why are you making me look crazy? He took a step forward, before Jasmine came between us. You need to leave right now, or Theckups will meet you here. He stared at her, then at me, and walked out. The cops took a report, told me, unless he touched me or threatened me directly, there wasn't much they could do. I felt helpless. A week passed with no contact. I thought it was over. Then came the knock. It was just past 11:30 p.m. I was home alone, curled up watching a show, when I heard the first tap, then another, then pounding. I peeked through the peephole. I backed away, heart thudding. He didn't look right. He was sweaty, disheveled, pacing like a madman. I know you're home, he shouted. I see your car. He pounded again, then kicked the door. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. Please hurry, I whispered. Open the door, Maya. I backed into the living room. That's when I heard glass shatter. He'd broken the front window. He was inside. He charged in, shouting, well, died we? Would you ghost me after everything? I backed into the hallway, clutching my phone, barely breathing. He didn't have a weapon, but he didn't need one. I screamed as he grabbed my arm. Then the front door slammed open. Again, police, 2 officers tackled him to the ground. It was over. Intercoms, he screamed my name. As they dragged him out, I got a restraining order. He spent 30 days in jail for breaking and entering. It wasn't long, but it was enough. I moved, changed my locks, my number, my routines. I haven't seen him since, but Semetimesi still check the peephole. I still look over my shoulder when I walk to my car at night. I still wake up at 3 o'clock a.m. heart pounding. Sure, I heard a knock. People say you're safe now, maybe, but fear doesn't need a reason. It only needs a memory. And Eli, he gave me enough memories to last a lifetime. I was 15 when I met Caleb. It's not even a dramatic origin story, just a borrowed night. After finishing my math homework, scrolling through random Instagram pages of people from nearby towns, Caleb popped up in my suggested friends list. Mutual said he lived in Winhaven, just a 4-5 minute drive from me. He messaged first. You go to Eastview High. I think I saw you at the mall last weekend. He didn't. I hadn't been to the mall in over a month, but I played along. Maybe were you by the food court or the bookstore? That was how it started, like flirty banter. Safe. I was a shy kid, not someone who got a ton of attention. The idea of a cute guy messaging me felt like winning a raffle I never entered. Over the next couple of weeks, Caleb became a fixture in my life. Every evening at a school, I'd hop on Kik or Instagram and talk to him. He told me he was in 10th grade, like me, played guitar, and wanted to be a sound engineer one day. He sent me selfies, dark curly hair, soft brown eyes, always with his hoodie half on. He was caught between being cool and being comfortable. He was charming, not in the over-the-top movie way, but in that way that made you feel like you were the center of someone's entire attention. After 2 weeks, he asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. I said it. We never met in person. That should have been the first red flag. But we were kids romanticizing everything. Besides, he said his parents were strict, and he didn't drive. Same here. Sometimes we sent each other voice notes. His voice was calm, a little low. He was always a sentence away from whispering something he shouldn't. I liked it. I gave him my address. Once he said he wanted to send me a letter, something special, something real. He never did. Eventually, like most teenage online relationships, we faded out. It wasn't even a dramatic breakup, just fewer messages, less excitement, and then silence. I think we lasted 10 days officially, and another week of lukewarm chats before I quietly unfollowed him. I moved on through high school. I dated a real guy named Owen. We went to prom, broke up before college. I never once thought about Caleb again, not until years later. Was 20 now, still living at home in Wynwood with my parents. They'd gone to dinner with family friends that evening, and I had the house to myself. I wasn't scared of being home alone. I'd done it 100 times. I was in the living room, watching a rerun of Criminal Minds, texting a group chat with my friends about what time we'd meet the next day to go hiking. I remember the clock said 9:12 p.m. That was when I heard a thud. I paused the show, thinking maybe something fell upstairs, but the sound came again, this time from the back door. I froze. We had a sliding door, that led to the backyard with motion-activated lights. When I peeked over toward the kitchen window, I noticed the lights hadn't turned on. Someone was trying to be quiet. My heart started racing. Every warning from every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to surged through me. I grabbed my phone and walked slowly barefoot across the living room toward the hallway near the kitchen, just close enough to get a view of the back door without being seen. That's when I heard it again, a scrape, then the unmistakable sound of the door unlocking. But we had a deadbolt. Me blood ran cold before I could even process what was happening. The door suddenly slammed open and 3 people walked in. I darted back behind the corner. I didn't breathe. I saw the side of one of their faces as they passed through the kitchen toward the living room. A girl with long flat brown hair turned for a second, and I swear to God, it was Caleb, or rather the girl I used to know as Kayla, but I never even knew Caleb was a lie. Behind her were 2 men. One was tall with a busket, the other shorter and broader, wearing a hoodie that shadowed most of his face. My body acted before I could think. I bolted upstairs, skipping steps. My hands shook. I twisted the lock on the bathroom door, then dropped to the floor clutching my phone. I dialed 911, but I hadn't hit call yet. I couldn't breathe. I could hear footsteps on the stairs. I hit call and whispered into the phone, "Someone broke into my house. I'm upstairs. They're inside." A comm dispatcher asked me questions, but I only half heard her because right then someone tried the bathroom door or knob. Click, click. Then a pause. Then a man's voice, "Hey Eli, I know you're in there." I choked on my breath. "We just want to talk." Long time. I didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't Caleb or whoever she was. I called the cops. I yelled. He laughed. "You think we care about that?" My entire body tensed as he leaned closer. "We'll be back in a few. Better be ready to open up." Then the footsteps retreated. I stayed silent, breathing shallowly. The dispatcher kept talking to me, telling me the police were on their way from inside the bathroom. I could hear voices downstairs talking, moving things, laughing like this was some kind of party. I stayed locked in that room, whispering updates to the dispatcher for what felt like forever. And then quiet to quiet, no voices, no footsteps. I waited another 5 minutes before I heard the doorbell ring. "It's the police, you're safe now." When I opened the bathroom door, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. Downstairs the house was a wreck. The TV was gone, my PS for my laptop, even my mom's jewelry box was yanked from the dresser. The back door had been cracked with some kind of crowbar. I told the officers everything, especially that I recognized one of them, the girl Caleb, except I didn't know what the real name was, not even her last name, just a face from 2013, a few blurry photos, and some voice notes. But even that was enough. Within 2 days, police tracked her down. Her real name was Danielle Parker. She was 21 now. She'd been using fake names online 4 years. Her boyfriend, a tall guy, had a long record of theft and home invasions. The third guy was his cousin, all local. They'd robbed 4 houses that month. All people Danielle had talked to online as a teen. I wasn't the only one. She'd kept addresses, names, family information. Even though years had passed, she still had my name, an address written in an old notebook. According to what the officer told us, I never figured out why she came back to me. Maybe it was random. Maybe she remembered I lived in a nice neighborhood. Maybe she just wanted to show off for her boyfriend. I don't know. What I do know is that 4 years, I thought nothing of that fake teenage romance, a brief blip in my life. But for her I was a target. She never let go. I've never used Kik or Instagram since. I lock every door. I keep pepper spray in my bag. And every time someone knocks at the door unexpectedly, I freeze, because now I know sometimes the people who pretend to love you are just taking their time before they destroy your life. It started with a smile, was 19, still clinging to that awkward place between being a teenager and a grown woman. Had just gotten my first real job at a department store called Brighton's, the kind of place where moms shopped for curtains and teens came in for $10 jeans. The pay was minimum wage, but to me it felt like independence. Up until then I hadn't dated seriously. I went to prom sure twice, both were awkward. Group dates, the kind where no one actually likes each other, but everyone's too scared to go solo. Hadn't kissed anyone before. Honestly, I wasn't sure until to my mom always said I was a late bloomer, and I had convinced myself that wasn't okay. But everything changed when Landon started working there. He was short, really short and wiry. He had these intense green eyes and messy auburn hair that Looked like it hadn't seen a comb in weeks honestly. He wasn't my type at all, I told my co-worker Trish exactly that when she whispered one day near the fitting rooms, "Hey, that new guy Landon, he thinks you're cute." I glanced over and saw him unloading boxes. Near the stockroom door he caught me looking and smiled. My stomach flipped, and I hated that I told Trish not interested and brushed it off. But that night I went home thinking about his smiley. A week passed, then he started flirting. It started harmless, small compliments, asking me about my weekend, joking about how we both hated folding clearance items. I flirted back, why not, it felt nice. I didn't have guys falling over me. And he seemed funny, quick-witted, confident. And there was something about the way he made everyone else in the room disappear when he talked to me. A month in we had our first kiss. Had imagined it differently, something soft, meaningful, be under the stars or after a date. Instead it happened in the employee parking lot just after midnight. He cornered me by my car talking about how much he liked me, how rare girls like me were. Then he kissed me unprompted. It was sloppy, rushed, and my back was pressed against cold metal. I didn't say anything at the time, but I remember feeling empty inside, like something had been taken instead of given. Despite that I kept seeing him. We'd sneak into the back room in closing shifts and make out behind the supply shelves. There was something thrilling about it, the secrecy, the danger of getting caught. I thought maybe this was just what adult relationships looked like, rough around the edges, messy. Soon after the teasing started. "God, you're such a klutz," he'd mutter, tripping me as I walked by. At first I laughed it off, but when he kicked the back of my heels so hard that my shoe bent and cut into my skin, I said, "Hey, that actually hurt." He smirked, "Don't be so sensitive, you're lucky I can joke around with you." He'd smack my arm hard or shove me into the racks, play fighting. He called it one time. He ripped a chunk of my hair out while tugging it playfully, and when I cried out he got mad and said, "Don't be dramatic." I started hiding the bruises from my parents, from co-workers, from myself mostly. He became possessive. At first it was flattering. He'd say, "I just don't want other guys looking at you," when I wore eyeliner. Then it became, "Don't wear that unless you're with me." I stopped putting on makeup unless we were together. He said, "You're lucky I give you attention when one else would." And I believed him. He made me skip work to drive him and his friends around. I lied to my parents, telling them I was with Trish or picking up extra hours. I paid for everything, his food, his gas, even cigarettes, for his sketchy older cousin. He never had money, and I was so desperate to keep him happy that I gave without question. I was drowning, but I thought it was love. I was Mormon. He wasn't. I couldn't even tell my parents she existed, so it all stayed secret, locked away inside me, growing rot like a wound no one could see. Then came the night everything broke. We were in the back seat of my car, parked in a shadowy corner behind the store. Things started getting heated, but when he pushed further I said, "No, I don't want to." He ignored me. I froze. I kept saying stop. He kept going. My voice was a whisper, because I wanted it to be, but because something in me broke. I didn't cry until he left. I sat in my car alone afterward, pulling my jacket tight around me, feeling filthier than I'd ever felt. I didn't even know what to call what happened. It was too blurred, too confusing, but I knew it wasn't right. I started seeing someone else shortly after. A nice guy, sweet, respectful. Landon found out one day in the break room. He exploded. "You stupid slut," he screamed. Everyone, Trish, our manager, even the new seasonal hires, sat there stunned, sandwiches halfway to their mouths. "You wouldn't give it up for me, but you do for him," he shouted. "You wouldn't give it up for me, but you do for him," he shouted. Something in me snapped. I stood up and screamed back, "Because I hated you. You used me. You hurt me." I quit that week, got a new job across town, and blocked him on everything: Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. Then I'd unblock, look at his page, hope for a message. I hated myself for wanting him to come back, even though I knew he was poison. And then 5 months later, he did. A message popped up on Facebook. "Hey, can you give me a ride?" Just those 6 words. My stomach dropped. My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen. I hadn't seen his name in months, but it felt like he'd never left. My heart raced, my mouth went dry. I wanted to answer, "God, help me," I wanted to, but something in me said don't. I closed the message, told myself was stronger. Now I didn't reply. That decision may have saved my life. A week later, I saw the news: local man arrested for attempted murder. Suspect identified as 22-year-old Landon Wells. He had stabbed someone left them 4 dead in an alley. The victim survived barely. I stared at the article 4 hours, rereading the words, the date of the incident, the exact day. He messaged me. He was on the run. He needed a getaway car. And I almost gave it to him. I sent the article to everyone who had ever doubted me, the co-workers who said London's a nice guy, and laughed when I called him abusive. I didn't wait for responses. It blocked them immediately after he got 2 years too for attempted murder because of good behavior. He's out now. I heard from someone that he got married, that he has a baby on the way, that he's working at some gas station. To towns over and me. I still flinch when a guy raises his voice. I still wake up crying sometimes from dreams where I'm back in that break room, back in that car. My now husband holds me through the panic attacks. He knows about everything. He's patient and kind and careful with me. But I carry the damage, the pieces of myself that Landon broke. I hate that he gets to smile and play house while I deal with the emotional wreckage he left behind. I hate that part of me still feels guilty, even though I did nothing wrong. But most of all, I'm grateful that I trusted my gut that night, that I didn't answer that message, that I didn't save him from the consequences he earned. Because Osomitis survival doesn't look heroic sometimes. It just looks like silence, and thank God for that silence. I should have walked away that night, not because something dramatic happened then, but because nothing did. And sometimes that's when you need to worry the most, when someone slips into your life so quietly that you don't notice the warning signs until they're inside your home, or it's your every damn day back. Then I was living in Hammond, Indiana, in a 1-bedroom apartment I could barely afford. I worked at a car parts warehouse just outside of town, long shifts, sore feet, and never-ending overtime. My weekends were sacred. That's when I met Lena. It was a Saturday night at a bar called the Gaslight. I went with a few guys from work, Daniel, Marcus, Ankol, think crazy, some beers, darts, bad jokes. Lena was standing at the bar laughing with her friend. Long dark hair, leather jacket, confident smile. The kind of girl you notice, but feel like you shouldn't talk to because you're not in her league. But I was drunk and stupid. Hey, I said, sidling up next to her while she waited on her drink. Can I buy you another one you're not going to like? She laughed. That depends. Are you going to stare at me the whole time I drink it? I might, I said. But only because I want to remember this moment when you slapped me. She smirked. That was weirdly charming. I'm Lena. We talked for a long time. Her friend left early, but Lena stayed. 1 drink became 3. Then we were sitting outside smoking and talking about old bands, weird dreams, and why we hated our jobs. She worked in retail, hated customers. I made some sarcastic joke about car parts having better personalities. At the end of the night, she didn't kiss me, but she said, you're not like other guys. That should have been the first warning, but it felt like a compliment at the time. 2 weeks later, we started dating fast, the kind of fast where you're spending every night at each other's place without realizing you've stopped seeing your friends. Lena had this way of looking at them that made me feel important, like I was someone worth noticing. I'd never had that before, so I let myself fall. She started bringing little things to my place, a toothbrush, her favorite hoodie, hair teaspoon. She started leaving her phone charger, her makeup bag. Eventually, I stopped asking why she needed to stay every night. I'd be lying if I said it was all bad. The first couple of weeks were intense fun, but there were cracks, small things. Once we were walking through a strip mall and I bumped into this girl from work, Becca. She waved at me and smiled. Lena's hand on mine went cold and stiff. Who was that? She asked the moment Becca walked away. Becca, I said. She works in receiving. She smiled at you like she wanted something, she said. I laughed it off. Lena, she's literally married with 2 kids. She's still at underscore. Stopped walking. What the hell? She looked at me like I was the one overreacting. I'm just saying you should pay more attention. Girls like that are always looking. I should have walked away then, but I didn't. I chalked it up to insecurity. Everyone has baggage, right? It didn't last long, maybe 2 months tops. By the end, I couldn't breathe. Everything I did seemed to make her upset. If I didn't answer a text within 5 minutes, she'd blow up my phone with 15 more. She accused me of cheating on her because I had a picture of my sister on my fridge. No joke. The final straw came when she showed up at my job during my break just to make sure I wasn't with anyone. My supervisor pulled me aside and said, man, she's scaring your co-workers. So I ended it. We were sitting in my apartment. I told her gently that it wasn't working out, that I needed space, that we were moving too fast. She stared at me for a long time, then smiled. Okay, she said, if that's what you want. She kissed me on the cheek and walked out. I stood there dumbfounded. Was that it? I got home from work around 8 o'clock p.m. Thess Street was mostly empty, but I noticed a silver Honda Civic parked across the road, the same kind Lena drove. I squinted. Same scratches on the bumper, same black dice hanging from the mirror. She never got out, just sat there with the engine off. I thought maybe she was working up the nerve to knock on the door. I waited, watched from my kitchen window for half an hour. She didn't move, just sat. Eventually, I closed the blinds and tried to forget it. When I woke up the next morning, the car was gone. The next day I left to go hang out with Daniel. I didn't see her car on my street, but halfway through my drive, I saw it again. 2 cars back. I didn't tell Daniel right away, but when I left his house, I took a weird route home, turning randomly, just to see if she was still behind me. She wasn't, but that night her car was back outside, same spot, same silence. I messaged her, Lena, I saw your car outside again. Please stop doing this. I'm serious. No reply that night. I didn't sleep well. I kept getting up to check the window. Eventually, the car was gone. The next morning was quiet, but that night she came up to my window. It was just after midnight. I was half asleep lying in bed. The apartment was dark except for the faint streetlight glow seeping through the blinds, a sound soft, deliberate, like fingernails on glass. I looked. She was there, face inches from the window, staring in her eyes wide and unblinking. We locked eyes. She flinched, then bolted. He jumped up, heart hammering, called 911. By the time the cops came, she was gone. I didn't press charges. I just told them I knew who it was, gave her name and car description. They took a report. I hoped that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. A few days passed. No car, no text. He tried to move on. Then weird things started happening. My trash can was moved. A cigarette, but that wasn't mine, appeared on my porch. Started noticing my door handle slightly turned when I came home. Someone had tested it one night. I found a small stuffed animal, this ugly little blue rabbit, sitting right outside my door. I hadn't seen that thing in years. Lena won it for me at a county fair. When we went out one weekend, I picked it up with shaking hands and threw it in the dumpster. That night, I heard footsteps around the back of my apartment. My bedroom faced the alley. I turned off the lights and crept to the window. She was there again, this time, just standing, not trying to get in, just watching. I snapped. The next day I drove to her apartment. I shouldn't have, I know, but I wanted answers, closure, something. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. You look tired, she said. Are you okay? You need to leave me alone. I said, this isn't normal. You're stalking me. This is serious. She blinked. Slowly, I haven't been anywhere near your place. I saw you. I hissed at my window outside your car. Everything. She leaned against the doorway. You really think I do that? You broke up with me. I'm moving on. Maybe you should too. Then she shut the door. That night, I locked every window double, checked every door around 3 o'clock a.m. I woke up gasping like I'd been pulled from a nightmare, and I heard the back door creaking. I grabbed a bat I kept in the closet and crept to the kitchen. The door was open. Outside on the back steps was Lena. She was barefoot. Her hands were scratched up. Her face was calm. You're mine, she whispered. You just don't see it yet. I shut the door, locked it, called the police again. She was gone. When they arrived, but this time I pressed charges. I had enough evidence. Now she got a restraining order, and after that night I never saw her again. It's been almost 3 years. I've moved twice since then, changed jobs, changed towns, but sometimes when I park at night or walk past my bedroom window, I feel that old crawling sensation on my skin, that feeling that someone is just outside watching. I haven't heard from Lena since that night, but I still check every lock every night, because when someone invades your life like that, quietly, obsessively, it changes you. And sometimes the scariest thing in the world isn't a monster or a ghost. It's a person who once kissed your cheek and said you were different. I always believed that the worst thing someone could do to you is leave without explanation. Turns out I was wrong. The worst thing someone can do is stay in your life, stay in your head, and stay just long enough to dismantle every dream either cherished growing up in a small town like Ken Ridge, where everyone knew everyone else's business. I learned early on to guard the things that made me happiest. So when I began planning my dream wedding at 11 years old, I kept it in a worn leather journal I never showed her. Soul pages filled with cutouts from bridal magazines, mood boards of dusty rose and sage green napkin doodles of centerpieces, and dress silhouettes. My sister Belle, who was 3 years older and had a mouth like a switchblade, eventually found it. "You really think any guy's going to want to marry you?" she'd said, holding the book above my head, her smirk venomous. "You're not even pretty. No one's going to care what color your napkins are." She was wrong about all of it, because 12 years later, I met Nathan. We worked in the same building in downtown Roseville, he on the 4th floor in a tech startup, me 2 floors below in a legal office. I first noticed him in the elevator, slim fit, navy suit, steel watch, the kind of man who could carry silence like it was confidence. He always made eye contact, always smiled. He didn't try to hard-headed need to the first time we spoke outside the elevator was during a fire drill. I had left my phone at my desk, and he offered to let me borrow his to check the time. That conversation turned into coffee the next morning, and then dinner the next week. And then suddenly, I was skipping my usual Saturday grocery runs because Nathan liked cooking for me. He never pressured, never pushed, and I mistook that for kindness. He listened when I talked about my parents' messy divorce. He nodded when I told him Belle had cut contact with me after I refused to lie for her in a custody battle. He held my hand when I told him about my miscarriage, 20 to a pregnancy. Have I told the father about he was everything I thought I deserved after years of dating men who only saw me as a placeholder. And when he proposed on our 1-year anniversary, I said yes without even looking at the ring. It wasn't the proposal I had dreamed of, no fireworks, no string quartet. But I told myself that didn't matter. I had Nathan, I had love, the rest would follow. The first red flag came a week later, though I didn't recognize it as one at the time. We were in bed late, scrolling through venue photos on my tablet. I'd found a historic estate house in Savannah with Spanish moss-covered trees and a massive glass solarium. It was perfect. It's beautiful, babe, Nathan said, not looking up from his phone. Do we really want something that expensive? It's just one day. I paused. You said you wanted the wedding to be special. Edo, he kissed my shoulder. But can it be special without draining our savings? I offered to pay the deposit myself. He smiled, but didn't say thank you. The second red flag came when I told him I wanted a child-free wedding. I get it, he said, but my cousin's got a newborn, and she's super clingy about leaving the baby with anyone. I'm not saying she can't come to the reception. Dead carefully, just not the ceremony. She'd be offended. I'll talk to her, I promised. I just want our day to be focused. No screaming, no diaper bags in the pews. He shrugged. Okay, call it. Wasn't really my call. I didn't realize that until much later. The problem started to unravel like yarn soaked in gasoline. Slow at first, then fast and fiery. Nathan grew quiet. When we discussed guest lists, he started skipping planning sessions, brushing them off with work's been crazy. He stopped offering inputs altogether. I thought maybe he was overwhelmed. Men aren't usually excited about centerpieces and RSVP cards, I told myself. Then one night, while sitting in the back booth of a restaurant after our cake tasting, he asked me point blank, "Do you really think we need a 5-tier cake?" I blinked. What? It's just extravagant. Don't you think 150 guests, that's a lot of mouths? I stared at him, trying to read the expression on his face. Nathan, been dreaming of this since I was a kid. That's the problem, he said flatly. You're still thinking like a child. My stomach turned. Excuse me, you're obsessed with appearances, with colors and napkins and guest lists. It's like you care more about the wedding than the marriage. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because somewhere deep down I feared he might be right. He apologized the next day, brought some flowers, said he was just stressed. I forgave him. The final straw came 3 weeks before the wedding. I had just finalized everything: the florist, the photographer, the custom vow books. And then Bale Khaledi heard from Aunt May, letting kids come. That's right, you're out of your mind if you think I'm coming without Elsie. I'm not stopping you from coming. I'm asking you to respect the ceremony. You think I'm going to leave my 4-month-old with a sitter in another state? She snapped. You always were a selfish. I offered a compromise, I said, my voice shaking. You can bring her to the reception. God, you sound just like Mom. Ventured. She treated everyone like a prop. Her little fantasy. Belle went on. Guess it runs in the family. I hung up. I cried. Nathan said nothing. 2 days later I came home to find him sitting at the kitchen counter sipping whiskey and scrolling through something on his phone. To Belle, he said, without looking up. My throat tightened. What did you say? I told her Being unreasonable, I stared at him. You, what, she's your sister Callie, and you're pushing away your whole family over napkin colors and baby Polly. Chessie couldn't believe what I was hearing. You had no right. I have every right, he said, slamming the glass down. We're getting married. Remember that night I didn't sleep. I sat in the bathtub until my skin pruned, staring at steam on the mirror. Somewhere the voice of my 11-year-old self whispered, he's not the one. But I silenced her, because by then it was easier to pretend than to start over. 2 weeks before the wedding, Nathan hosted a guys' night at our apartment. Hadn't invite me to join, and I didn't press. I went to stay with a friend that night. When I came home the next morning, trash was overflowing with beer cans. A red lace bra that wasn't mine washed between the cushions of the couch. Didn't confront him immediately. I waited until he came home that night, buzzed from another business dinner, and asked him outright. He didn't deny it. It didn't mean anything. He said it was a mistake. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Callie, please don't throw this away over one stupid decision. I left there. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The next morning I called off the wedding. Mimi begged me to reconsider. Nathan's family sent flowers and cards. Bella didn't say a word. Nathan sent me one final text. You'll never find anyone who won't allow it. You're crazy. The way I did. Good luck. I moved out of the apartment, locked his number, and boxed up my wedding journal for good. It took me months to even look at another man. I had to stop flinching when someone complimented my hair. 2 years to stop having dreams about being walked out, only to find no groom waiting. I sometimes see Nathan's name pop up in mutual friends' posts. He's engaged again to a woman who looks a little like me, and a lot like someone who doesn't say no. As for me, I still believe in love, but not in fantasy, not in dusty rose napkins and rooftop vows under fairy lights. Not and sacrificing yourself for the illusion of something perfect. Number. Now I believe in something else entirely. Boundaries, gut instincts, and walking away before someone stays long enough to destroy you. Certainly. Here's an expanded continuation of your story, diving deeper into Lena's healing process, emotional struggles, and eventual growth. It keeps the same tone and style, adding more detail and reflection. The months after I called off the wedding were a chaotic mix of relief, confusion, and heartbreak. I moved into a small, worn-down apartment downtown, a place where the paint peeled at the corners and the floors creaked under every step. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a space untouched by Nathan's shadow, free from the suffocating weight of his expectations and lies. For the first time in years, I didn't have to pretend. No more forced smiles, no more biting my tongue. But healing wasn't instantaneous. It was slow, like a cracked sidewalk repairing itself, one fragile piece at a time. Therapy became my lifeline, sitting across from a stranger and unraveling. Years of pain felt terrifying, but also necessary. I learned words for the things I'd buried deep inside: manipulation, gaslighting, emotional abuse. Naming them made them less powerful. Even with all that, some days were darker than others. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing as if I was reliving every moment in the break room, the apartment, the bathtub. I'd find myself frozen at my bedroom window, staring out at the streetlights, half expecting to see Nathan's face in the shadows or Lena's car parked just outside. The paranoia clawed at me, an unwelcome reminder that scars ran deeper than bruises. Social media was a minefield. Mutual friends occasionally posted pictures. Nathan smiling with someone new, his hand resting on a woman who looked nothing like me, but somehow still made my chest tighten. I wanted to believe he was happy, truly happy, but a part of me seethed with bitterness. How could he move on so quickly while I was still piecing myself back together? Did he ever regret what he did? Did he even remember the woman he left broken? One night, I found myself scrolling through his page out of habit, the same pit growing in my stomach every time. And then it happened. A text from an unknown number blinked on my screen. You'll never find anyone who tolerates your crazy like I did. My hands trembled. The old panic bubbled up, suffocating and raw. For a moment, I considered replying, to yell, to scream, to explain how wrong he was. But I didn't. Instead, I deleted the message. I refused to give him the power to unravel me again. That night I lay awake, thinking about what surviving really meant. It wasn't about forgetting. It wasn't about pretending it never happened or putting on a brave face for the world. It was about waking up every day and choosing myself. Choosing to believe that I deserve kindness, respect, and love, real love, not the illusion Nathan sold me. I started to rebuild my life in small ways. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away during the relationship. I took up painting again, something I'd loved as a kid, but abandoned because I thought it wasn't practical. I started running in the mornings, breathing in the cold air, feeling my body grow stronger with each step. Every mile was a quiet rebellion against the weight Nathan had tried to put on me. Slowly, I stopped flinching at raised voices, stopped checking every knock at the door, stopped waking up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding. It wasn't perfect. Some nights I still cried myself to sleep. Some days I questioned if I'd ever fully heal. But each day without Nathan was a victory, a step toward reclaiming my life. Love, I realized, wasn't about fairy tale weddings or perfect napkins. It was about boundaries, about trust, about respect, about finding someone who held your hand through the darkness, not someone who pushed you into it. And most importantly, love started with me. It was nearly a year after I left Nathan when I finally began to feel like I was waking up from a long, suffocating nightmare. The constant knot of anxiety in my chest had loosened just enough to let a little light in. I still had bad days where the past threatened to swallow me whole, but they were no longer the norm. One crisp autumn evening, I found myself wandering through a small art gallery downtown. A friend had invited me to a local exhibit, and I'd reluctantly agreed, more out of habit than excitement. The gallery was quiet, with soft jazz playing in the background and warm light spilling from old-fashioned sconces along the walls. I felt oddly at peace there, surrounded by colors and shapes and stories told without words. I paused in front of a painting, a swirl of blues and golds that reminded me of the ocean on a stormy day. The artist's signature was unfamiliar, but the emotion in the brushstrokes was unmistakable. As I stared, a voice broke my concentration. "That one's my favorite," a man said softly behind me. I turned to see someone standing just a few feet away. He was tall, wearing a well-worn leather jacket and a genuine smile that didn't feel forced or rehearsed. His eyes were steady and kind. There was none of the intensity or possessiveness I'd grown used to avoiding, just calm, simple warmth. "I'm Sam," he said. Extending a hand, I hesitated, then shook it, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years: hope. We started talking about the art, about the stories behind the pieces, about music and dreams and the little things that made life beautiful. For once, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells or preparing for a fight. I wasn't explaining myself or defending my boundaries. I was just me. Over the next few months, Sam became a quiet, steady presence in my life. He didn't rush me. He didn't push or pry. He listened when I talked about the past, never judging, never minimizing. And slowly, I found myself opening up to the possibility that love could be different, gentler, kinder, real. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still moments when shadows from the past crept in, when I questioned if I was ready to trust again. But each time, Sam was patient. He reminded me that healing wasn't linear, that scars could remain without defining the whole story. One evening, as we walked through the city park under a sky full of stars, he took my hand and said, "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. It had been almost a year since I walked away from Nathan, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I was beginning to breathe again, not the shallow, quick breaths I'd taken when panic clenched my chest, but deep, slow breaths that filled my lungs and reminded me I was still alive, still me. The nights were still hard sometimes. The dreams didn't vanish overnight. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, images of broken promises and empty rooms swirling in my mind. But each morning, I chose to put on my armor again. Some days that armor was thin and cracked, but it was still armor. It was on one of those fragile mornings that a friend invited me to a local art gallery opening. I almost said no. Being around crowds, making small talk, it all felt exhausting. But I needed a change, a distraction, maybe even a tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in years. The gallery was small but warm, walls lined with paintings that told stories in colors and light. I wandered slowly, fingers grazing the edges of frames, eyes drinking in the beauty other people had created. That's when I stopped in front of a painting, a stormy ocean, waves crashing with wild energy, that somehow balanced by the golden light breaking through the clouds. "You like this one?" a soft voice asked behind me. I turned to see a man standing nearby. He looked relaxed, not like someone trying to impress. His jacket was worn leather, and his smile was quiet, but genuine, the kind that reached his eyes. "I do," I said. "It's like the chaos and calm are fighting and making peace at the same time," he nodded. "That's what drew me to it, too. I'm Sam." I hesitated for a moment before shaking his hand. There was something easy about him, something honest. It didn't come with the sharp edges I'd learned to avoid. We talked for what felt like hours, about the art, about music, about the small things that make life worth living. With Sam, I didn't feel the need to protect myself constantly. He didn't ask questions that felt like traps or push me to explain every scar. Instead, he really listened, and that was a balm I didn't know I needed. Over the following months, Sam became a quiet presence in my life. He never rushed me, never tried to break down the walls I'd built so carefully. Some days, the weight of the past still pressed on me hard, and I withdrew, unsure if I could be that vulnerable again. But Sam was patient, steady, like a lighthouse. When the storm threatened to drown me, one chilly evening, we walked through the city park, the night sky a vast sea of stars above us. The world felt both vast and intimate all at once. Sam reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with mine, warm and reassuring. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. For the first time in a long time, I believed him. Healing was far from linear. I still flinched when voices raised or when I caught a glimpse of a familiar car on the street. But with Sam, I learned to confront those fears instead of running from them. I started going to therapy, writing again in journals I thought I'd never touch, and even laughing more freely. I'm not sure what the future holds. I don't know if the past will ever fully stop whispering in the quiet moments, but I do know that I'm stronger now, stronger because I survived, because I chose myself when it was easier to give up. And maybe that's what love really is, not perfection or grand gestures, but the courage to show up, to be seen, and to be safe, and to be safe.